Hello guys, welcome to lecture 6 where we're going to be discussing weekly profiles. There are a few key weekly profiles I would like to point your attention to in this part of the course, and we're going to begin with the classic expansion week. As follows with previous lectures on profiling, weekly profiles are going to be aligned with understanding how the weekly power of 3 develops. And the most common case of expansion for a weekly candle is going to be a classic expansion week. This is when we see Monday or Tuesday form that wick of this higher time frame weekly candle before seeing expansion on the subsequent days. So typically, this looks like an opposing run on Monday or Tuesday, and then a Wednesday, Thursday expansion, followed by a Friday or Thursday retracement once the weekly range has been capped. Importantly, this will follow for all weekly profiles as well. We want to draw your attention to where the wick of a weekly candle is going to be formed in relation to these weekly profiles. We define a key level as a relevant swing or fair value gap in the market. Now, this can be seen on a time frame of greater than the 4 hours, and we'll talk about that a bit more once I hop onto a chart. But this here is a classic expansion week. How we'd approach trading this week is quite simple. What we'd want to do is we'd want to wait for this established swing to be created, and we'll talk about how we can confirm that narrative when we get on a chart, and then look to trade towards the draw on liquidity on the days following the intra-week reversal, right? So what we're going to do now is look at the next example, which is a midweek reversal. A midweek reversal is quite similar to a classic expansion. However, we see the low of the week created on a Wednesday or typically, right, a Tuesday afternoon as well as possible, right? So in this case, in a midweek reversal, what we see is that the opening price of the week consolidates or forms that opposing run. We get that key level formation of a swing, and then we see expansion Wednesday, Thursday, and maybe even Friday. We continue to see that expansion until the draw is met. So similar to a classic expansion week, however, the day in which we reverse is typically later on in the week, the middle of the week. Okay, that leads us naturally into a Thursday counter or a consolidation reversal template, wherein we see Monday, Tuesday, and typically Wednesday consolidate the opening at near the opening price of the weekly range. Now, in this case, we don't see a key level engaged, and instead we build this intra-candle range where Thursday can sweep the low, typically of this range, and also into a key level, like on previous weekly profiles, before seeing a Thursday, Friday expansion following this weekly right candle reversing and forming that wick. The last example we want to point your attention to is a TGIF Friday example. Now, this isn't a weekly profile per se. However, this is quite typical to see in the case of a classic expansion, which was the first weekly profile you were introduced to. This is when we can expect 20 to 30% retracement of that weekly range when the draw is met before Friday or on Friday morning, and we see a retracement back into 20 to 30% of that weekly range on the Friday afternoon. So these are the weekly profiles that we're going to be studying on the chart as we move into that section. And the real trend here is analyzing where this weekly candle forms its wick, on what day, and how we trade the subsequent days following that reversal signature.